Welcome back to the Turn the Music podcast. My name is Kyle. This is episode 24. We are on measure 9 of The Spirit of Music. And to discuss that, we have CJ. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm tired, but I'm doing all right. It's been one of those weeks.
Yeah. It's been a week.
Yeah.
It's been a week.
How about yourself?
I'm tired. So I've been going into work early so I could have Friday off.
Oh, okay.
And the new guy at work, he doesn't get Monday off because he's like a temp.
Okay.
So to help him out, I came in early this week so he could get paid for being off on Monday. So I've been going in early all week. And then, as you know, I'm obsessed with this manhunt going on in Pennsylvania. So for those that don't know, there is a manhunt going on in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And my friend lives there. So she's about 8-ish miles away from this manhunt. Things are picking up and have been picking up since about 6 o'clock tonight. So,
so let's just
that monitor right there.
Let's just put this in perspective for the listeners. We're recording this on a Thursday night. So when this episode comes out, it is very plausible that this person has been captured.
It's possible, but he has been on the run since the 31st of August.
Yeah. So we're just prefacing the fact that at this moment, while we're talking, there's a manhunt. Hopefully he is captured by the time you're listening to this episode on Tuesday, on the Tuesday that it drops.
Yep.
But
they are closing in on him tonight, it looks like, which is better than they were doing last night. But I have no faith. So
some of the stuff that you're telling me, I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
So,
I wonder when or which TV streaming service is going to get this as a movie, and once the strike is gone, this is going to become a movie within a year or two once the guy's captured.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's crazy.
So that's what I've been listening to for the last week.
So no
what
music.
Have you been listening to?
So no music.
Yeah, no. I've been police scanners and
like
watching
not even like music in the background where
because I'm watching 2 live streams and listening to the police scanner. So I've got 3 things going on at the same time. I've got no.
You have a police scanner. Or you downloaded an app.
This is a website,
and you can listen. I'm not trying to sound ignorant because I've never done it before. Like back in the day, we had a physical scanner, so that's why I knew. But like, you could go on a website now and just listen to police scanners.
Yep.
I didn't realize they were public in that sense. Well, that's very interesting.
Yep. So you don't get like everything, but you get a fair amount.
That's interesting.
So,
I, on the other hand, have not actually listened to much music. I've been on my audiobook kick.
So for those of you that are joined for music, sorry. If you'd like, I can pull up the police scanner for a couple minutes. You can listen to that.
We are doing music on our live shows. I mean, we've been doing the book for now. But yeah, no, I've been really hooked on audiobooks. I mean, this happens to me. And I've been listening to Exemplary. It's as a book 1 in a series of it's focused on this one guy, and I think I mentioned in the last episode, it's done in such a way where the guy's talking to you, like he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, you mentioned it last week.
And the voice actor who does it is phenomenal. And some people are like, oh, it's such an army base, but because it is, he's an army grunt, but it's so well written and put together. It's funny. Like, you don't feel like you're listening to a book. You feel like you're listening to a movie or something. It's just so well done. And there's like 15 or 16 books in this series. So I'm listening to it. I'm like halfway through, and then I found out this guy narrates other books. So I went through Apple Books, and I found like 3 of them that were 99 cents. I'm like, download. So that's my music.
All right. Well, there you go. So shall we get to the book?
Oh, that's right. The music podcast is doing a book. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. So, this episode came out a week and a half after we did a live show in honor of Jimmy Buffett. And the reason why I bring that up is that I was thinking about this earlier. I feel like we talked a little bit on the live show how his music is very original. Like very original.
Yep.
And you mentioned that he doesn't steal from himself in a sense. Like he's got a sound that's his sound.
Yep.
But as you used John Williams as a comparison, John Williams will steal lines from his compositions that he's done for the different movies, which I think is cool because it kind of like connects them in some odd way.
Right. It's like almost like the John Williams universe, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yes. No. But it was a good comparison because Jimmy Buffett, if you listen to his songs, they don't.
Right.
The only thing that connects him is his voice, his guitar
the vibe
playing,
kind of, yeah.
and the vibe that he gives.
Yep.
And I was thinking about this as because we're reading this book about Victor Wooten and his journey and struggle with music. And the stuff that we were listening to by Jimmy Buffett is a guy that was a pilot and a sailor and is writing songs and stuff based upon his, some of them crazy experiences, like getting shot down in Jamaica. And I think it's interesting how I'm curious of what his musical struggle was. Did he have a musical struggle?
Right.
Because if he's telling stories with his songs, he didn't really have a musical struggle. You know, like it's just interesting, the dynamic from Victor Wooten to Jimmy Buffett to Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, like how these individuals are. I think I connect a lot to Victor Wooten's journey.
Yeah, I do too.
And I'm going to say struggle as well.
And I think, I don't know much about Jimmy Buffett, so this might be just me being ignorant. I don't know. But like, I think one of the reasons that we connect to Victor so much is that I think with him, by the way, his birthday is on Monday, so happy birthday, Victor.
Oh, that's right. It's September 11th. So when this comes out, his birthday's passed.
Yep. So I think for you and me and Victor, like for us, you know, music is kind of life almost. Yes. I don't know that Jimmy Buffett had that same thing because, you know, I mean, he was a pilot, you know, and again, I don't know what he did other than music, and you know, music is a big part, obviously, but you know, not everyone, you know, I remember, you know, talking about this in high school with my choir director. You know, my choir director would only see doctors that were musicians.
Okay.
Because he just trusted them more.
Right.
You know, but like as a musician, like the doctor is their main job, but music is a big influence. So I think it's, you know, it's almost like that phrase, you know, you live to work or you work to live.
Right.
It's like, you know, music is either your life or it's part of your life. And I think I don't know that Jimmy Buffett was the person that was like Victor, where music was his life.
I think for Jimmy Buffett, life was his life.
Right.
I think he lived. I think he lived for his life, which I think is fantastic.
Yes.
And a lot of what you read about him and even up until the day he passed is that they said he lived his life. Like he did not shy away from doing the things that he wanted to do, which is why he built the empire of money that he built. Was not really just to live this luxurious life. It's just so he can live his life the way he wanted to. Right. And I think that's the difference. I don't think that makes him a better musician than Victor Wooten.
No.
I don't think that. I think that the approach to their music is different. And yes, I do tend to lean. I'm more with Victor Wooten because music pulls me forward versus, and it sounds weird to say this, life pulling me forward.
Right.
Yeah. No, I you know, and it was just funny because I read through this chapter again that we're going to talk about, and I was like, oh, it's kind of ironic that we just did that, and it's like it's parallel. Their lives are parallel, but for completely different journeys.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, we got a little philosophical there.
Yeah, well, we do that every once in a while.
Yeah, sometimes we know what we're talking about.
So when we left off, our trio had gotten into a taxi and It felt kind of weird. And that's kind of where we left it. So things pick up there. Basically what happened was they realized that the taxi driver was wearing headphones and they needed to get out of there fast. So, Victor realized that this was going on, told everyone they had to get out. And Ollie actually didn't shut the door, so he was able to get out pretty quickly and pulled Seiko with him. And then Victor eventually got out. Unfortunately, Seiko did not get her drum out, so the drum has disappeared at this point. But yeah, it was kind of a crazy scene as they pulled away from attempted to pull away from, pull away from the airport.
Airport? Oh, that's right, because they dropped the car.
Yeah, because they went to drop.
I was going to say bus terminal, but I'm thinking ahead.
Right. You're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
So they went back inside to the baggage claim because they thought it'd be safer to be around more people, and that is so they get in the airport, and at this point the ambiance of Music City took over, and Ali and Seiko were looking for the pictures of all these musicians, and there were no pictures to be found. They didn't understand why, and Victor was trying to get them to focus on what needed to happen. And at one point he says, so the airport was unusually quiet. There were a few people present, but the sounds of country music that usually played throughout the airport were absent. The only semblance of music was the rhythmic patterns of the moving baggage carousels. I knew we had to get out of there. So even in there, he felt something going on. I don't know why I highlighted that, but because we always talk about how rhythm is everywhere.
Isn't that a Paula Abdul song?
Isn't that the Rhythm Is Gonna Get You?
Oh, Rhythm's Gonna Get You. Well, I mean, come on.
Or is that Gloria Estefan?
Oh, maybe that's Gloria Estefan. That's Gloria Estefan.
I have no idea.
I get confused sometimes. No, but you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, right? We talked about how, like, you caught it once when you were driving,
and
I caught it while I was, like, in Home Depot, and my wagon was, like, tripping out. Yeah.
Yep. So they hop on a bus, and it was a short bus ride. Victor fell asleep because he hadn't been sleeping much with all the confusion. And the plan was to make their way to Victor's friend's house, and hopefully his friend would give him a ride home. And then they get out of the bus, and they are approached by a man, of course, wearing headphones. And they didn't realize this at first, but Seiko pointed out that he had no footsteps. Even though he was walking quickly towards them, and you would normally hear that sort of footstep, there was no footsteps to be heard at this point. So Ali and Seiko try to get out of there.
There's something I do want to mention because I think it plays a factor.
Yep.
When they were getting out of the taxi, Victor Wooten dropped and rolled.
Yes.
He hurt himself, and I think that's important to state because I think because that plays a factor moving forward.
Yes, and he hurts himself again,
then he hurts himself again. But he's weakened at this point.
Yes,
because he fell and he kind of got banged up from that fall.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So as this man is approaching, there is a sound that Victor hears, and a blinking light. So it's the blinking light of a crossing signal. And he said it was the first sound that he had heard. So he started to approach that light.
It was the first musical note that he heard, and I think that's interesting too because we talk about rhythm being everywhere, and he's noticing a musical note everywhere.
Yeah. He said it was the first musical note we'd heard since arriving to Nashville. I welcomed the sound. I dropped Seiko's hand and walked toward the light, as if it were a beacon in the night, a savior of some sort. Recalling Seiko's technique, I unfocused my eyes and used my peripheral vision. My whole body became more receptive. The sound caused a tingling sensation in my scalp as well as on the bottoms of my feet. I don't know why, but it was as if the crossing signal had become my own sign of hope. Fear had receded as I stood captivated by the sound. I vaguely remember hearing Ali's voice. I didn't respond. What struck me about this passage was the first book, where he did the exercise of standing in front of the speaker and trying to feel where the vibration was coming from and spinning around with his eyes closed.
Right.
And I don't know whether Michael knew this back then, but it was all kind of training for this moment. And Michael said in the first book, when he was playing that gig, like all the gigs I've done up to this point were training for this gig that I'm about to perform.
Right.
So it's almost like all the training that Victor had done was leading him up to this moment here, because he was, not only was it the sound, but Seiko added the whole vision part of it. So being receptive with his whole body as opposed to just being, using his eyes to see. He was trying to use his whole body to see and use his whole body to hear, which
right.
I thought was interesting.
And because he says he closed his eyes, he stood erect, my arms at my side with my open palms facing the light, like reuniting with an old friend. The signal and I welcomed each other. Although it was mechanical, the sound felt alive. And it's interesting, and I'm going back to something that you brought up in an episode. Her name's Seiko, and you mentioned the fact that Seiko is the name of a watch brand, and being that she's all based on rhythm and time, is that the reason why she's titled that? And I think it's interesting because at that moment he drops Seiko's hand, like it's like he let go of time for a moment.
That's interesting.
Because at that moment, he gets entranced to this red light and the sound, and he lets go of everything around him. And it made me think about Michael Crichton wrote a book called The Andromeda Strain, and it's almost like the Manhattan Project situation, where it's about these group of people that are underground in a lab, and one of the characters cannot look at a red light or they become entranced. And it played like, at first you're like, oh, who cares about that? But it becomes a very important factor throughout the book. And I think it's interesting that this is a red light and it stops him. And it's that. And it's just, there's these like little things that you start going, I wonder if that was on purpose.
Yeah. So then he hears a voice that says, listen to me. And he didn't know who the voice was. And the voice responds, if you must ask, you are in grave danger. And he realized that it was the voice of music that he had heard years ago. And he says, she had done so much for me, but had I done enough in return? And we talked a little bit about this last episode when we were talking about the shame that they had felt. And I know we talked about, Victor's shame was leaving his parents in that, kind of that state. But I think on a bigger scale, it was the fact that he had never done what he said he was going to do, was to help music. And that's kind of how the book opens up.
Right.
So that's more, I think, more of his shame, in this book.
Oh, I agree. I think that's exactly what it is that he didn't honor what he said.
Right.
Because he does say, he felt a mix of elation and dishonor.
Yep. And music says, you must, and then she fades away, and he tries desperately to get back in touch with music, and he remembers the words of Michael that says, try easy, my friend, try easy, which we have brought up many, many times. I think it's really important, and that's kind of the basis of meditation. It's so easy to overwhelm yourself when you're meditating, but the way to meditate is to relax and let things come and deal with them that way.
Well, and I think it's that it's reminding himself to focus on what he's focusing on at that moment. Right. Is that one sound, that light or whatever. So back to what you were saying, how he was using his technique that he learned with the speaker and just putting his focus back on that one thing. Because like you said, for whatever reason he was taught all that stuff, it was to get him ready for what's happening now.
So then music finally responds by saying, you must feel me at all times and in all things, even in the beeping of a crossing signal. That is important. If you don't. And her voice faded into silence. And that's when Ali interrupted by saying, Victor, we must go. And they eventually start heading out. And they ran away. And then, out of the darkness of the night,
Batman. Oh, sorry.
Batman came. He heard a scream, and Ali ran away. And as he stood there, he watched a man in a dark suit come into view, seemingly from nowhere. The darkness of the night, in combination with his fatigue, made it difficult to focus. He shook his head and wiped his eyes. The man was still there. And then all of a sudden, a van pulled up, and the van basically grabbed Ollie and Seiko and drove away and left Victor, by himself. And, this is where you get into, the real despair that he feels in this book and chapter is that, now he's lost Jonathan, who we had just met. Now he's lost Seiko and Ollie. And he just doesn't know what to do. He gets angry, again, kind of like the first book where he got mad at Michael so many times for kind of beating around the bush and trying to make him figure things out by himself. And again, here he's by himself. He needs to figure things out for himself. So he says, I was alone. There were no cars or no people, no lights or sounds. Even the wind had abandoned me. And if you remember early in the book, the wind is what brought him to Jonathan. So even that has now left him. And so the crossing light was flashing again. So he tried to run towards that flashing light in hopes that he would hear that sound again, that music was still there, but he heard nothing. And then in his frustration, he said to himself, music always seemed to make me calm. Even fear would subside when she was around. I wondered if the opposite was also true. Were my extreme fear and frustration pushing her away, keeping me from hearing her? I needed to control my feelings. Music once told me that she needed to be felt at all times. She also alluded to that fact that I would be in danger if I couldn't always feel her. There's so much in there that I resound, that's the wrong word, that I can't speak words.
Resounds in you?
Sure, I guess that's what I was trying to say. I don't know if that's the right word, but...
Well, like resonates.
That's the word, resonates.
There we go.
All
yes,
right.
I can stop now. So a lot resonates with you?
Yes. So because there's a lot of times, where I'm in situations where around people I have high anxiety. And a lot of times if there's music playing, I'm able to focus on that, and that is able to kind of bring me back down to normal and kind of handle the situation better.
You'll never be normal. So.
No, that's true. I will never be normal.
Yeah.
I know that.
To your baseline, but never normal.
Yes. Closer to other people's baseline. How about that?
No, so, but I totally get what you're saying, because there have been times that I'm in the office, so much is going on around, and like the best way for me to kind of get away from the background noise or the background chatter is either put a set of headphones in my ears or focus on one thing that might like pay attention to another sound that's unrelated in order to disengage from all that.
Mm-hmm.
How's the manhunt going? Because I can see you looking at the monitors.
There are a bunch of people just walked into the frame, and I was like, who are these people?
Yeah. So just for those who are watching YouTube, and you'll see Kyle periodically look up to those monitors, that is why.
So,
and those that are listening to us, I'm watching Kyle, and he's looking left and right up in the air, and you know that he's looking at the manhunt.
This is the manhunt. This is to make sure that the recording is still going on, and then this is you. So, and then this is the book. Well, wait, that's the book. So
there's the book. There's the book.
I am just.
So okay, wait. So let's connect this for a second.
Yeah.
So you're talking about how music resonates with you, right?
Yes.
Everything okay? Did you fall?
The screen fell asleep. So I had
He's like, no, this good. So you talk about how music resonates with you. Yeah. All right. You, this manhunt started when? You text me what, on like Monday or Tuesday?
So that's when I really kind of got hooked on it, but it started on the 31st. This is day 8. Okay.
So, and the reason why I bring this up, as you've been watching this,
mm-hmm.
okay, and you're engrossed in it, it's very intriguing,
mm-hmm.
especially that you have a friend that's nearby the area,
right?
And it's not like she's scared of it; she wants to go on this manhunt. It sounds like. Okay, so my thing is this, and this is on a level of being a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Have you at all sat there going, I wonder what music would go really well with this in the background?
I haven't, because I've been so
engrossed.
Engrossed, yeah. I am in the phase of like I need more information. Like I just and I haven't been like this since the Boston bombings. That was the last time that I was really
right,
sucked into this. Checking Twitter, and I got back on Twitter for this.
It's not Twitter, it's X.
I went to twitter.com and I still got what
social media platform formerly known as Twitter.
So, My Twitter account.
It's now a symbol.
I know, whatever. It is what it
No,
is.
but so you've gotten so engrossed in this
Mm-hmm.
because me, on the other hand, like I'd be watching and be like, I wonder what music would be in the background of this. Like, would it be heavy metal, or would we have like this? Like, would it be something from like a horror movie or a mystery where it's like, did it like it's Jaws, did it?
Mm-hmm. See, the thing is, I'm so overloaded with because I'm watching two different streams, and then the police scanner. So it's like you got Fox News, who's got their sources. You got this other guy who's streaming it, who's got friends in law enforcement feeding him information, and then you got the police scanner all going. It's like I don't have time to process music and think about it.
But you're processing 3 separate things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Could you process 3 separate songs at one time?
I don't know. I do, however, when I practice my scales, I do practice one scale on one hand, another scale on another hand. So I'll play
different scales.
I'll play like C in the left hand and E in the right hand. So yeah.
And when you're doing that, is it a complete separation of your thought process when you're doing it, or is it because you've done it so often it just happens? I feel like that's a bad question. Is it so natural and subconscious to you that you could just pick the scales and go?
No.
Or do you have to really focus on it?
I have to really focus on it.
Okay. So you do that more for like mental development?
Yeah, and hand independence. Because like when you're practicing scales, like the idea is that you play the idea is for hand unity, right? So you want to try and make each note with each finger on each hand sound the same. So like if you're playing, like your pinky is usually playing at the same time as your thumb. They're two different fingers, two different muscles, two different hands, but you want to get the exact same sound, the exact same attack, that sort of thing. But when you add the extra element of the other scale, you're now adding independence because sometimes the fingering is different. Like there's a sequence when you're playing the same scale and it's the same, but now when you start adding different scales, now it's different notes, different flats, different sharps, different movements, different rotations. So there's a lot more that goes into it. So it's almost like, one of the things that you learn as a pianist is one of the first like real tests as how good. That's a bad way of putting it. One of the first pieces that you would learn to really kind of set you on your way are Bach 2-part inventions, because what they do is it's basically,
I remember learning those actually. Yeah.
And like your right hand plays one thing and then your left hand plays the exact same thing, but at a different time. So it's training independence in your hands. But like if you think about the way most music is written, like the left hand is kind of this bass kind of harmony thing, but with the 2-part inventions, it's melody and melody at the same time that creates a harmony. So it's like there's a lot to think about.
So that being said, can it be any 2 scales?
Yes.
So they could be well, I don't want to say unrelated because in a sense they're all related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So what I try to do, part of what I try to do is try to isolate different things. So my ear is pretty good. So I know that if I listen to a scale, like I know what's coming up next, and my fingers go by what I hear. So I'll try to pick really dissonant scales. So I'll play like F and F sharp at the same time.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
C and C sharp, like just so it's like, I mean, they're completely opposite scales of each other, so it might be cheating a little bit, but
But like to develop that.
Yeah, so I can't rely on my ear, so I have to rely on.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
so I was curious because I have just difficult separating my hands playing piano in general. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're doing 2 separate scales is just like, oh, okay. Yeah. So was this something that was taught to you or expressed to you by a teacher? Is this something that you were like, let me try it. I want to see if I can do it myself.
I had a teacher in high school who, in fact, my choir director, I would always listen to him practice. He was an Eastman graduate, and he never played 2 different scales at the same time, but he would start on different notes. So he'd always do them in thirds. So like if he's playing the C scale, he'd start with C in the left hand, but start on an E in his right hand. I don't know why he did that. Maybe just to change up the different fingerings. I don't know. That way it's not the same, the same grouping.
But he didn't change the...
He didn't change the key. It was always the same. Like if he was playing C, he played C in both hands, just started on different notes.
Okay.
So that's how I started. And then I went, well, if I'm doing this, I wonder if I could do 2 scales at the same time. And I started. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I started with doing only C in the right hand and then doing every other scale on my right hand. And then
Makes
I
sense.
flipped them and then started doing different scales. So, and
That's
part of it is that
interesting.
scales are boring for me. So this is now a way to make the
Right.
scales more interesting. And,
So for all you piano players out there who are looking for something to practice, don't do this. No,
I
try.
I don't know if it's worthwhile doing because I'm not very good, but you know.
But no. But the thing is I think because I play saxophone and clarinet, there's no way, and you've played trumpet and French horn and a few other instruments. There's no way to do that with these instruments unless you put both in your mouth at the same time, which even for me is hard because I need two hands on one of those instruments.
Yep. I have done trumpet and trombone, trumpet and French horn at the same time.
But you could do that because you only need the three keys. It's still that's still a pain in the butt because the embouchure has got to be different in both of them, right?
Yeah, and you have to it's a different place. So it's here and here,
Right.
But
Right.
the cool thing with the French horn is it's left hand and the trumpet's right hand, so it works.
Like you can make that right. So, but in a sense of, even if it's not something you mastered, I'm sure it has helped you in your playing.
Yeah, probably. I don't know what it's done for me. I've never
but
made my students do it.
But here's the thing: you're saying probably, so it probably has. You just don't know what it is,
Right.
But there have probably been things that you've done that maybe in the past would have been more difficult, whereas you're doing them now, and you're like, "Oh, this is easier now." And you can't connect it to what it was, but it could be because you were doing the scale thing.
Who knows?
You know. So, I mean, I know it has not helped you when working on the car and you don't pull the roof off the top of your car, but that's a different story.
That's very true.
So, you were reading the fact that, wait, did I turn the page too soon? I did. We went off topic, not in a bad way, but you were talking about how music calms and we were talking about music and all that stuff.
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
So Victor says, I was alone and music seemed to be my only hope. I looked around, the streets were bare. Not knowing where to go or what to do, I sat down on the street corner and leaned back against a pole. It was a toss-up between getting up or giving up. The crossing signal, my beacon of hope, sat dark and silent just above my head, seemingly mocking my every presence. A musician, but you can't even hear a crossing signal. The thought was loud and clear. And this one hit me because the weekend that I had, like everything I did was a failure. Like everything I tried to do went wrong. I started working on the Jeep. Turned out those load output converters that I bought, both of them were bad. So I spent the morning trying to fix that, realized they were both bad. The next day I went to make a birthday present for my mom. Jigsaw died. It's like there goes that. Went and I returned a whole bunch of stuff at Home Depot. My safety glasses were on the top of my head. Went to the bathroom, took my hat off. Safety glasses fell on the toilet. I was like, like my mom came over Monday because she wanted to make hamburgers for dinner. I only bought hamburgers enough for one person, and I went like everything
I thought you were
I
gonna
had
say
done.
she came over and said, "You're really not my son.
You were adopted.
You were adopted." And your birthday's coming up,
It is.
13th.
Yep.
When is your mom's? She's
28th.
She's the 28th, right? Yeah, I knew she was the same month. I just couldn't remember the date. But so, do you feel that is a subconscious thing because one thing happened, you expect a domino effect, and like even though you're not thinking about it, just because things started happening, you're just like,
not
okay,
in the beginning, but after like the third or fourth thing, I was like, yeah, this like what else is going to go wrong? Like
right, like it's like Murphy's Law
Yep.
just kicked in, and
Yep.
there's no way to get out of it. Yeah.
Monday night, I was in a car accident. Don't know if I told
Were
you.
you
this.
really?
Yeah, it was. It was very minor. Like I was at a stop sign. In fact, the same stop sign the same street I was on without my other accident, and the lady just bumped me. Like I'd been hit harder in bumper car rides. Like
Okay.
barely touched the car, but like it was just like one more thing. It was like, no
That's
damage,
great.
but
No damage.
no damage. But the New York
Probably
and me
more
did
to
come
her-
out. So
Huh?
the New York and me did come out. So which we can discuss offline. But yeah.
But so that's crazy.
Yep.
Don't go to that stop sign anymore.
It's a street it's like it's the way home. Like it is
I know.
on my way home.
I know you showed me, and I was like, "That's yeah." No, I get it.
I mean, I can go around that and go a different way, but it's another like 6 or 7 minutes to my ride, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that. So
Right, and then if you're hitting traffic, it just makes it worse. Yeah. So he said the words reverberated in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Made himself upset. Threw a rock at the light, shattered. He questioned music. She abandoned him. He started yelling at the top of his lungs. He started crying, feeling hopeless, and went back down on the pavement. He started feeling an unpleasant feeling. He had an unpleasant feeling throughout his body, and he knew someone else was there, but he just knew that the man with no footsteps was close. He took a little bit of energy and he said, "I'm sorry, please forgive me," to out loud, but he doesn't know why. He heard it again, but a different crossing signal. And he made an attempt to stand, to go across to that crossing signal that was doing the same thing, that sound. But he felt vertigo, fell down the curb, fell into the street, and then the black van sped into his direction. And then it goes further. There's a man in front of him. He tried to stop, but his legs couldn't cooperate. He stumbled. And then the man stepped off the curb. He was wearing headphones. And then he had some fear. He was screaming. I'm trying to, I don't want to go deep into it, but I'm trying to pick out those parts. He said there's nowhere to turn. And then he just saw his face was in full shadow, but the red reflections from his rapidly blinking headphones caused him to look even more menacing. This is the guy that was in front of him. And then he was kneeling down. He removed something from his pocket. More blinking lights. He was about to put a pair of headphones on Victor's head. And he said he felt hypnotized, and his eyes got heavier and heavier, like he was getting tired. And then he says, music told me I needed to feel her at all times, but I was too scared to feel anything other than fear. As a final effort, I tried to sing. No sound. I tried to hum. There were faint vibrations, but I heard no sounds. My ears had become numb. I was losing the battle. In my mind, I pleaded for help. And then a melody formed in the back of his mind. And with all his effort, he was able to increase the intensity of it. He said it was beautiful, but it was unfamiliar.
And I think that, going back to that statement,
Yeah.
If you remember back in the first book, there was, I guess, dynamics is probably one way to do it, but this was a different kind of dynamic. This was energy. It was, more intense. So that was,
but
again,
I mean, that's a dynamic.
More training from what Michael did.
Right. He put his focus on, Yep. It's all the things that he learned, the listening, it's all. He sank into the melody, letting the vibrations go throughout his body, and it basically startled the man that was trying to put the headphones on his head. Regaining sense, getting out of that hypnotic situation. He finally opened up his eyes. The man was backing away. Then he was startled by footsteps that approached from behind, and he was able to see a black mask covered the eyes of this man that was coming towards him, and he quickly grabbed and subdued him.
Interesting that he heard those footsteps.
Right, I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking the same thing. It's interesting how he didn't hear the footsteps of the man with the headphones, but he heard the footsteps of the other man. Was the other man with the headphones far enough back because he did recede?
Could be. But if you think about it, like these people,
when you find out what,
right. So these people are the ones that are taking the sound away.
Right.
But why were these footsteps heard?
Right. Are they bringing the sound back?
Right.
Yeah.
Or does this person know something on how to combat this? Who knows?
Right. He did say one of his assailants wore headphones and the other a mask. So I guess he's talking about the same two, right? And he moves slowly. The other moves amazingly fast. The man with the headphones vanished, and the masked man put him in the van. He said he was an athletic person, but he was so tired, and he yelled with all his might, but he just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Victor used to do a backflip on his birthday every year. And
I wonder if he's going to do one this year.
He hasn't done it the last several years.
He hasn't?
He has not.
Oh, okay.
But he used to.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the past several years was the pandemic.
That's true.
and everybody physically hasn't really been themselves because I'm not saying that people weren't working out, but those that typically kind of fell out of it. So I wonder if that was part of it,
and,
unless he got injured.
Well, yeah, that. So he also has I think it's a neurological disorder he's been dealing with.
Right.
So
okay.
I don't know if that's part of it too.
That's possible.
He's over 50 now. He's approaching 60.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Which is weird.
I know.
Like, it's weird to think that way because I don't really think of age.
Right.
Like, yes, someone gets older, their looks may show that, but I don't like go look at the person and be like, oh man, I can't believe you're 70. Like, I was just like, I'm like, oh, you're 70. Oh, I had no idea. Like, it's just one of those things. He said he heard muted laughter, but didn't think it was anything funny about the situation. He was they put a dark knit cap over his head. He became claustrophobic. And then he said, take what you want. I don't have anything, but take it anyway. Just please let me go. And the gentleman replied, don't talk, relax. He said that it was a gentle voice. How am I supposed to relax? How am I supposed to, the last thing I remember before I blacked out? Now, he doesn't state why he blacked out. I forget. Does it state ahead why he blacked out? I think it's just from all the anxiety and the stress and what he put his body through. It was just time for him to conk out.
Yep.
Because they don't hit him or anything like that.
No,
it's not like
no.
they back him on the head.
But they did say that he did see, like, I think it was Ali that just kind of go limp once the man grabbed him.
Right, that's right. The man went right. That's right.
But it doesn't say that for him.
And he said the van stopped. Doesn't know how much time passed. His head was still covered. He could feel the pain in his arms and legs. Heard the door open. He just remained quiet. Being upside down and blindfolded made it difficult to gather information. He wasn't sure what was happening. It was a new experience. He's never been kidnapped before. So he pinched himself. And then that line, because the measure is the measure 9, the chapter is called Turn to the Light. Mm-hmm. And then
which we didn't talk about, but
right. No. But I mean it clearly states in the middle, like that's what he does. And that, what is it? The subtext, the tagline is, if I was still alive, I wasn't sure how happy I was about it. Mm-hmm. Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's like almost like he's in the middle of a, like, who cares situation. Mm-hmm. Which I guess at this point, anybody probably would be like, what's the point?
Right.
What's the point? So, measure 10 is next week, and we'll give you a little heads up. It's called Homecoming. You can ponder that.
Not the Robert Randolph song.
Huh?
Not the Robert Randolph song.
Not what it's interesting because the next few chapters are a lot of like all the stuff that we talked about all the training that he went through with Michael and all that stuff. It's like that's kind of where we're going. Like, we're starting to see the training become a part of his life as Michael expected it to, just probably later than anticipated.
Right.
Or when it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do talk a little bit about the timing of it.
No, I know. I'm trying to keep it mysterious until we get there. Because I'm still following the thing, the from the first book where he says what's the line about everything being true and not being true? Mm. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know how much of this actually happened or what experiences that he had close enough to this for him to write the story. Mm-hmm. Like not to sound funny, but a lot of what's going on right now potentially could have happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, potentially. I think the only thing that I'm not saying is far-fetched, but could be the one thing that didn't, is like the loss of sound completely.
Right.
But at the same time, if you were hit or you were knocked or something, you could lose your hearing for a moment.
Yep.
So, like, we don't know, like, where this is all, like, so it could all be real. It's just, so it's interesting how, And it's it's happening in Tennessee and Nashville. They're weird over there anyway.
Sure are.
I'm just for those of you who live in Nashville and Tennessee, I've been to Nashville. I love it. So I'm not,
And I want to go. So
do you really?
I do.
Oh, that's right. You did talk about that. Yeah. I have to say it was a cool trip and everything like that. If you go, and I think I mentioned this before, go to the Buttermilk Ranch. It's run by my cousin's wife, and she's a fantastic baker. It's delicious.
Nice.
I've never had that, but I've had some of her stuff while they lived in New York.
Gotcha. All right, so let's call it quits for the evening, and
yeah, I guess so. So you can go back to your manhunt.
Yeah, go back to the manhunt. And edit the podcast.
Long story short, Twitch, Fridays and Sundays. Fridays at 8, Sundays at 7:30. Check us out. Join us. If you want to know what we're going to be doing, you need to follow our social media on Twitter.
Maybe, because I don't always know what I'm doing. So.
Well, I'm just saying when we're going on, just to have an idea. So Twitter, X, same program. Instagram, follow us in Discord, have a conversation with us. We are on YouTube as well, so if you're listening to this and you want to see some of the stuff that's happening on camera in a few weeks out, you will see this on YouTube. And Kyle also uploads the bloopers and the funny parts and some of the stuff that you don't see in video, the random things that happen as we're getting set up. So check that all out. You'll hear the closing note, which I think we need to update because I think it's a little outdated, but there's a Linktree link in our show notes. Click that. That'll show you everything. And that's all she wrote.
Have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Turn on the Music podcast. We hope that you join us next week. Click on the Linktree in our show notes to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our Twitch and YouTube channel. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join us on our Discord. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you really want to help us promote the show, head over to Apple Podcasts or the podcast service of your choice and give us a 5-star rating. Remember, always share the music.
Thank you.